Hi, everyone. This is Mary Chaput, Family Caregiver Support Program Manager at the Department of Aging and Disabilities in Arundel County. So glad that you're with us tonight. I wish I could see you in person, but I guess this is the next best thing. Just want to remind you to keep checking out the department's website and our Facebook page so that you see all the up-to-date events that are happening. And stay tuned while we're going to send you a poll also to see what kind of programs you're looking forward to next year, especially if we're doing the same kind of virtual programming. So we'd like to have your feedback. So sit back and enjoy tonight's presentation. It's one that's especially needed for caregivers, critical during this time that we're in right now. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Mary. We're about to jump in, but before we do, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about the program and about our presenter. Have you or someone you always loved been a worrier? Has the worrying gotten much worse during this difficult time? Do you want ideas on how to feel better? If you answered yes to any of these questions, this program was created for you. Our presenter tonight is the author of Cruising Through Caregiving, Reducing the Stress of Caring for Your Loved One, and a longtime gerontology instructor at Johns Hopkins University's Certificate on Aging program. She is one of less than 800 certified speaking professionals worldwide and has been featured in national media such as the Wall Street Journal, Reader's Digest, U.S. News, and World Report, CBS, ABC, and many more. When she's not working, tonight's presenter is fantasizing about when she can wander the aisles of TJ Maxx and Marshalls without a face mask. Please join me in welcoming from Kent Island, Jennifer L. FitzPatrick.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be with you all tonight, and I sure do wish that we were in person, and I'm praying that that is sometime soon. But for now, we're going to make this as much as possible like we were together. So if you, like Stephanie said, and I want to emphasize it, if you have comments or questions, I will try to get to them in real time. I really want to interact with you. I know this is such an important topic for so many of us right now. So feel free to write in at any point. I want to hear from you as much as you are comfortable sharing. So tonight we're going to talk about worry and how to deal with anxiety during this very crazy, unprecedented, challenging time. The last time I did this topic was about 5 weeks ago, and I was so hopeful that things would be different by now. But in a lot of ways, I feel like people in some cases are managing their worry a little bit better. And then in some cases, people are having a harder time. So I'm curious about you. If you feel comfortable writing in, let me know how your anxiety level is. If you are, so on a scale of 0 being you're not anxious at all, which I would love to know your secrets if that's true, and 100, you feel like you're just, you're overwhelmed, you can't take another anxious thought. If you feel like writing in and letting us know where you are today, we'd love to hear it. So 0 being, no anxiety whatsoever, and 100 being just can't take any more anxiety in your life or worry. You feel like you're overcome with worry. So if you feel comfortable, feel free to write in the chat section. 95, I got somebody writing in, I know. So you, the person that wrote in 95, you are not alone. You are not alone. There are so many people struggling. This is tough stuff. So let's jump in. And if anybody else wants to write in, but we do hear you, the person that just wrote in 95. A lot of people are struggling just like you are. So again, feel free to write in if you would like, but also any comments or other comments or questions as well. A 7 today, not the pandemic. Or maybe it's a 7D. It says 7, so I'm going to think it's a 7D because it says not the pandemic, but it's my aging parents driving me crazy. All right, so we're thinking of you too. Being a caregiver during this crazy time is so difficult, and it's our thoughts are with you. And please, Mary's going to be asking you about other topics that you want to hear about, how they can be supporting you. So please let them know. We've got somebody else say 80, not as bad a possible, but the fear a grocery store trip could kill me is keeping me awake. Yeah, I get it. I get it. So I think what's really important we're going to talk about tonight. I have extra worry. My mother has Alzheimer's. So for the person that wrote in, and I don't want to use anybody's names because I know that it might be private. I want you to feel comfortable writing in. But for the person that says they're around 80, that they are so anxious about a grocery store visit, one thing that I would say to you is think about the options that you have right now. If it really is anxiety provoking, it's really bringing you up, if you're at an 80 and then you feel like going to the grocery store is going to shoot up your anxiety, it might be worth it to either look into delivery, look into curbside pickup. It might be worth it to get a friend or family member to drop groceries off at your home. It might be worth to order some of your essentials on Amazon or another website. I know that a lot of us really just want to go pick out our own groceries so we can feel normal. But the person that wrote that, I just want to mention it's not unusual for anxiety to spike. You're seeing people with masks on. It just doesn't look right. You have certain spots you're allowed to stand in the grocery store. So even if you don't have an anxiety disorder, I think a lot of people, their anxiety shoots up right now when they do a routine chore that they used to enjoy. My husband is probably one of the most zen people I've ever met. And he loves to grocery shop, and he's not grocery shopping right now. And it's not even because of anxiety. It's more because of the concern with that he just feels like it's just a pain in the neck, that it's stressful. And the mask makes you feel claustrophobic. I hear you. I feel like in a lot of ways we feel like it's not politically correct to say that, because we should just be thankful that we're healthy, if we are healthy. But you're allowed to say that. A lot of us, especially if you have an anxiety disorder or you have a tendency toward an anxiety disorder, or you're a big worrier, it can really make you feel claustrophobic. There's a lot of people reporting that, and that's okay to express that. So let's move on and talk a little bit about, does this tiger scare you? So of course, I don't mean the tiger in the picture, but if that tiger were in your house, and let's assume you're not Joe Exotic with Tiger King, because if anybody watched any of that show, it was pretty wild. But those folks were not scared of tigers. But most of us, if we're not a tiger trainer, if we're not somebody who has experience working with tigers, we're going to probably be scared. We're going to go into, if we have a tiger in the room with us, we're going to go into fight or flight. And that's normal, that it is life-threatening, that a tiger being, if we don't know how to manage a tiger, or we're not a tiger trainer, or we don't have the proper training, it would be very, very scary for us, and it should be. So it's normal. We're allowed to have, but we're supposed to have fear of something that could potentially be life-threatening to us. So who's struggling with worry right now? We talked a little bit about this, and we've heard some examples of you're anxious about the mask, that you're afraid you're going to die if you go to the grocery store. What I do want to remind everybody about, though, is that all the data keeps coming out, and again and again and again, that, and I know people are passing away, and I know people are getting very sick, and I know that older adults are in the higher risk group and people with compromised immune systems, but please remember that the vast majority of people have mild symptoms and do get better. Over and over and over, this is what we're seeing if you look at the numbers, and this has been really from day one. So we've got somebody else sharing anxiety levels at a 75, 80. You're chronically anxious, and you're taking some medicine, which is good. And your mom, you're worried about your mom because she goes for walks, she's out and about, she has difficulty managing her money. So during this pandemic in specifically, your anxiety level has gone up. Absolutely. So yeah, the diagnosis. So, okay, your mom has, it was supposed to get a surgery. Yeah. Right. And it sounds like the surgery, it did happen. Okay. So we got somebody saying that their anxiety ranges between a 70 and a 90, with your mom has breast cancer and you're waiting on results. Well, we're thinking of you. that is so much to be handling. Your mom is ill, and during this, I know people that are, I have a friend's mom who has breast cancer right now, and they won't even do her surgery right now because they feel that it just would be too high risk because she's in New Jersey. So we all have a lot on our minds, and I feel like for maybe perhaps the first time ever, we all know what everybody wakes up in the morning thinking about. Think about that for a minute. So whether you believe that we're opening too slow, or we're opening too fast, or whatever your beliefs are about what's happening right now, I think all of us are waking up in the morning. I had a moment today. I woke up and I was like, I want to say I had a good 3 or 4 minutes before I was like, oh yeah, that's right. But collectively, as a whole society, we all have the same thing on our mind so much of the day. And so a lot of us are struggling with worry right now. So I wanted to share with you a study that was done, that was an online study conducted in 2020, middle of 2020. The middle of March of 2020. There was a sample of 439 people, and it asked them, when all of the COVID started spreading around the world, what scared them the most. And these were the top 5 answers. And interestingly, some people, I just want to mention, like, obviously the economy, obviously health of others, personal health, only 11% of the people said that they were concerned about their personal health. But interestingly, 15% said that they were afraid of mass panic. Think about that. So not even that it was, health of others, health of self, worried about, can the healthcare system handle this? But mass panic, if you are somebody that has struggled historically with an anxiety disorder, like a panic disorder, and you have had panic attacks, you probably have had the experience of being worried about having a panic attack. And I'm wondering if anybody has had that. So this is before anything really got too bad. We knew it was coming, but I thought that this was a very interesting study. So very, very interesting. Also, the study indicated that the more fearful people were, the higher they had on uncertainty intolerance scales. So what is an uncertainty intolerance scale? So it measures how comfortable we are with uncertainty. So, for example, for most of us, we find so much solace in routine. Now, we might get sick of our routines, going to work, seeing friends, going to kids' birthday parties, or whatever it is that you have in your life. But that gives us a certain amount of structure to our lives. And interestingly, this study indicated that the more fearful folks had higher scores on uncertainty intolerance. If you have anxiety disorder, like a panic disorder or generalized anxiety or phobias, you most likely, your anxiety is shooting up because you don't know what's going to happen. So think about it. When this pandemic started out, it's like we get new information, almost seems like on a daily basis. This is okay. This isn't okay. This is okay. And for somebody that struggles with anxiety and intolerance for uncertainty, and I'm going to give you an example. I'm sure you have people in your life, and you might be one of them. Maybe you're on this program because you have a loved one who's really anxious or has an anxiety disorder. But you're very go with the flow. You roll with things. People who have anxiety problems, clinical anxiety problems, typically have a hard time rolling with change. Not that they don't want to change, not that they don't like change, but they want to plan for change. They want to make a plan. They want to know what to expect. And one of the reasons that I believe so many people are on edge right now, not just because, look, I believe very much that the mental health fallout from what's happening with the pandemic is going to reach so many more people than the actual disease is going to really truly long-term harm or kill. That's just my belief. That's just me speaking as an individual. I don't have any data to support that, but because I think that this uncertainty that we are experiencing right now is like nothing that anybody has ever had. And as a society, I know for me, I'm talking to friends and family who are usually very calm, very chill, not worriers, don't have anxiety disorders, and are just struggling, really, really struggling with the uncertainty. But people that have anxiety, clinical anxiety problems, even more so. This study also indicated that people had more fear when they exposed themselves to more media. So one of the takeaways from today that I'm probably going to say a couple of times this evening is please be mindful about your media consumption, how much media you're taking in. Yeah, with the constant news media going on, I watch the news once a day. I really like that. My husband and I, what we're doing is we go to either we go to the CDC every day to see has anything changed, and we go to the state health department, has anything changed? And that's it. That's really where we're getting our information. Right now, yes, a lot of news outlets, and in fact, I do a lot of media appearances, and pretty much media does not want to talk about anything but COVID. Okay, so the only things that I'm invited right now to talk on radio or television is COVID, and that's it. And I understand that because that's the hot topic, but that's what all the news is about right now. Yeah. So I think that's good advice to just look at the news or look at the media once a day and make sure it's a credible site. Please make sure it's a credible site. So sleeping, are you sleeping less? So we all know about 66,000 people were polled over the last couple of months. 31% of Americans are sleeping less because of the pandemic. And if you are prone to anxiety, even if you're not prone to anxiety, we know that missing sleep, losing sleep is going to skyrocket your symptoms. So talk to your doctor if you're struggling with sleep. So we talked a little bit about what normal fear is. So normal fear is obviously if something is potentially life-threatening, that we're going to have a fight or flight response. Now, if we see, and I'm going to just use the example of the tiger again, if you're with that tiger and you're not a tiger trainer, you're going to have that fight or flight response. You're going to have that fear. An anxiety disorder is when your body, when your brain behaves as though there is a life-threatening fear right in front of you. So what I want to throw out at you all this evening is think about this. So for those of you who are saying your anxiety levels at a 70 or 80 or 95, what right in front of you right now is life-threatening? Is there truly anything life-threatening while you're on this computer, or maybe you've called in on your phone? Is there anything that's life-threatening? And for most of us, the answer right now in this moment is no. So again, if somebody, we know for a fact that this person has COVID and they come and they cough on you, it would make sense that you'd be very, very stressed out and very anxious. But if you're sitting in your home and there's really no immediate threat, having an anxiety disorder response, having a true fight or flight response is really an anxiety symptom more than a fear symptom. So I'm not suggesting that anything, that's not happening to a lot of people. It is, but I want you to be thinking about that right now. And when you're having that experience, remind yourself that in the moment you're safe. If you're having really high anxiety, and try to do something that can bring your anxiety down. And we're going to talk about what some of those tasks and ways to deal with that can be. But just for those who maybe are on board, I think those of you who do genuinely struggle with an anxiety disorder, you're familiar with these symptoms. But for those who maybe have a loved one or a friend or family member who has an anxiety disorder, I want to talk to you a little bit about the symptoms. So physical anxiety, it is in the body. It's not just in the brain. A lot of older adults especially think, oh, it's in my head. But it does impact your body. People with anxiety disorders experience heart palpitations, chest pains, shortness of breath. They feel like they can't swallow. They're dizzy, they're lightheaded. They're trembling, they have stomach aches, hot and cold flashes, muscle tension, upset stomach. And if you're somebody who knows that they have an anxiety disorder, you probably recognize these symptoms in yourself. And if you're somebody who, even before this pandemic, had maybe weren't diagnosed and no one ever told you had an anxiety disorder, maybe you recognize this in yourself. Psychologically, some of the symptoms are irritability, nervousness, feeling tension without a stimulus. So again, I'm not saying that this situation that we're dealing with right now isn't insane and crazy, but if you're in your house safe, and nobody has COVID in your house, and you're following the rules right now in your house, there's not an immediate stimulus. But for many of us who have anxiety, clinical anxiety issues, that we are in our brain, we're thinking about all the potential stimulus. Like, what if I go to the grocery store and someone sneezes? Or what if what if somebody in my family gets it? Like, we're doing a whole lot of what ifs. If it's not happened already, then, and we're feeling tension, or if it's something that we're what ifing, it may be that we're having a fight or flight response without that stimulus. Flashbacks for people who have post-traumatic stress disorder. I am so concerned about our first responders and for our essential workers right now. I do believe we're going to see a lot of trauma, a lot of concerns. Again, this is my personal opinion. I think that the deaths and the impact of this virus are not going to be nearly as severe physically as they are mental health wise to so many people. People's whole way of life and their whole way of looking at safety and health and life is just changing. And those essential workers I'm particularly concerned about. And I hope that organizations are taking good care of them after this, because they sure do deserve it. Fatigue, hypervigilance. So I want you to think about what you're doing right now and think about, and listen, I'm not a virologist and I'm not an epidemiologist, I'm not a physician that's on the front lines, but think about if it's just you and maybe your mom, or you and your husband, and you're in your home, and maybe you're washing your hands 50 times a day. And it's not like you're bringing stuff in from the outside, or it might potentially be hypervigilant. Yes, we're supposed to be washing our hands. Yes, we're supposed to be keeping ourselves clean. Hygiene, over and over and over again. One message that we've had from the very beginning of this whole pandemic has been basic hygiene gets rid of the chances that you're going to get this virus. And so some of us are really taking that to extremes, wiping down surfaces many times a day, even if maybe we're the only one living there. And if it's not on our hands, is it really something that we need to wipe down 10 times our kitchen counter? If it's just you living by yourself, I don't know. So, but consider, do you think maybe some of your behavior is hypervigilant? The one good thing, people who have anxiety disorders tend to be it's very ego dystonic, which means that we recognize most of the time that some of our behavior is maybe a little disproportionate to what the potential issue is. And so sometimes people would say, well, maybe it's not necessary for me to wash my hands 50 times a day because it's just me living here by myself and I'm not touching anybody that's contagious, but it makes me feel better. And that might be okay. You're the one that has to decide what your comfort level is. Perfectionism. I think a lot of people with anxiety disorders right now, if they're beating themselves up, like one of the things all of us are trying to get out of the habit of doing is touching our faces. hard. It's hard to stop touching your face. And I think a lot of us are trying to be perfect about it now. And, it's good to not touch your face, but that's one of the things that's happening to a lot of people right now. Restlessness and just feeling on edge, ruminating, obsessively coming up with scenarios that scare you and that you're obsessed about. Feeling keyed up. Cognitively, this impacts our brain and our body, but cognitively, we have a hard time concentrating. Disproportionate concern for issues, health, finances, family, work. Now, again, with all of what we've seen about nursing homes and senior living, being concerned about a loved one that's in one of those organizations is potentially not disproportionate. But if it's the only thing we can think about, if it's the only thing we can focus on, it might be it might be that we need to maybe try to pull back a little bit. So just some different types of anxiety disorders. I'm just showing phobias, panic disorder, agoraphobia, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, hoarding disorder. So I want to go back and talk to you for a moment about social phobia, for example, or social anxiety disorder. In some cases, right now, believe it or not, some people's anxiety symptoms are not as bad, because if they distress them going into an office or being around other people or having to go to parties with their spouse and their spouse likes to go to parties and they don't, believe it or not, there are some people who are actually, if they have those specific types of anxiety problems, in some ways their symptoms are better. Now, people that have, say, claustrophobia, in a lot of cases are worse. And for many of us, if you're in your house and you're focusing on I'm in home all the time, my gosh, I feel like the walls are closing in, obviously it's much worse. But I wanted to mention that not everybody that has a clinical anxiety problem is necessarily suffering the same way right now. Some people, in some ways, it's getting a little bit better. And I also want to mention that for some of us, if we have made sort of a safe world for ourselves during this time. So for some people, somebody mentioned that their anxiety level was super high because they think, well, if I go to the grocery store and I catch this, I could die. And now I'm so worried. But think about, there are some people who have said, okay, this is my plan. I'm only going to stay in my house. I'm only going to be around my spouse and my kids. We're only going to order our groceries to be delivered. We're going to wear a mask even when we take a walk in the neighborhood, even though we don't live in a crowded neighborhood and there's not that many people that are going to be right in front of us. And they've got this whole structure where they feel safe. For those folks, I think even if that person has an anxiety disorder, when they start re-entry, or when their boss wants them to go back to an office, even if they've put safety precautions in place, for when their kids actually have to go back to school, for when they actually have to, maybe they're going to do a small gathering with family, when family is saying, okay, well, we're getting the green light. When that happens, when maybe the governor is saying like, okay, these are we're finding that this is much safer. Some people are going to struggle more during that time. So I want you to be thinking about, because it's not that every single person with anxiety problem is suffering the most right now. Some are suffering a little bit less, and some, they're going to suffer more in the future with re-entry, because right now for a lot of people, they've made themselves a safe little world that they feel comfortable in. So if anybody can relate to that, feel free to write in if you have any comments or questions or thoughts, or maybe you feel that way and maybe I'm comfortable now, but gosh, once I have to go back to the office, or once, mom can have visitors at the senior living community again, I'm going to be panicked because I don't really know how to navigate that safely and feel good about it. I feel like I'll be so exposed. So it's something to be thinking about. So again, so many different types of anxiety disorders. And I think for a lot of people, I've talked to so many first essential healthcare workers. My brother and my cousin are law enforcement. We have some friends who are nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, emergency room doctors, who right now are saying, you know what, it's business as usual. We have our training. We're doing okay. Not that they're not stressed, but from some of the things that they've seen, I wonder if they might suffer later again from post-traumatic stress, because people, while they're going through it, often don't. So what can you do now? What can you do now to feel better? If you're somebody that's wrote in that you're at a 70, an 80, a 95, you don't have to suffer. The 18% of us suffer with an anxiety disorder or obsessive compulsive related disorder. All those diagnoses that I showed you in the slides: OCD, generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, panic disorder. The good news about this, so it's the most common mental health condition that we face before COVID. Your other primary care practitioner, or if you have a therapist, we want you to reach out to that person. We want you to reach out to your therapist, but if you don't already have one, please talk to your doctor or your primary care practitioner. Please talk to them. With telehealth right now, we can most likely get you in to see somebody and get some help. And it might be, even if you're not interested or willing to see a therapist right now, maybe you've never done it before, maybe you're not interested, maybe you can just ask your doctor, would it be appropriate for me to try some medicine right now? And there are many medicines that can help for people to take the edge off. And I'm not going to get into what those are, because that's something you would want to talk to your doctor about, but don't keep it a secret. If you need help, ask for it. What else can you do now? Remind yourself that this is temporary. It's hard. It feels like it's forever. I can't believe how long this has been going on. I'm sure you feel the same way. But at some point, we will get over to a new normal. We will get over to a new normal. So this situation, we're going to start having the ability to do more, and we're finding new ways to connect with each other. But remind yourself that this is temporary. Stay informed, but limit unnecessary triggers. Now, I'm going to tell you the truth. I do not do well clicking on 100 articles a day, because that'll ramp me up. And I wonder if any of you are like that. And there's a lot of clickbait. It's interesting. My sister told me that she recently read this article about it. The headline was surprising ways that you can get the coronavirus. And she clicked on it. And she was just couldn't believe it, because it was basically like there was a bunch of people, up like 100 people that were together at an event. And she's like, well, that's not a surprising way. That's one of the ways that they told us it can spread really easily. So I think that we all have to be really mindful of where we're getting our information. If you are someone that is triggered by news and social media, be careful. It seems like everybody has an opinion on Facebook or Instagram, and unless that person is a doctor or a virologist, I would really think twice about what they're saying. I would be really, really picky about what resources you listen to. Who do you think is credible? Now, I also want to remind you, so I am fortunate enough, like I do get interviewed by the media a lot, and I will tell you that a lot of what I talk about is my personal opinion. Now, I might cite a study, or but what I'm saying to you is, when you see an expert on CNN, or you see an expert on Fox News, or you see, ABC has interviewed somebody, in most cases, like if they're reporting on a study, great, but a lot of it is their opinion. And so you got to really be mindful about, okay, is this opinion, or is this actually facts, and where is the information coming from? Yeah, somebody's saying that they're trying to meet with their therapist, get on a schedule. Yeah, 3 short podcasts a day. You're decided to take control of your consumption of media. We also had somebody that you're not worried that much, but your husband won't walk outside without a mask and gloves on, even in the car. Yeah, for the person that said that, that's tough too, because it's your loved one. I would seriously try to encourage him to just be really mindful of the facts. To maybe it's appropriate for him to talk to his doctor. It's very hard when you have a loved one that, and I'm not saying that, but there's specific instances where the experts are telling us masks are appropriate and gloves are appropriate. So I would look that up. I don't want to speak to that, but I would go to CDC's website. I would go to the to credible websites that you trust and look at what they're saying about using a mask in a car when you're with your spouse or by yourself, or the glove issue. I would definitely encourage just trying to get the facts, because we can combat anxiety with the facts. Now, a lot of the facts out there right now are scary. I get that. But if you go to legitimate sources and you get the legitimate information about, I think it really can de-escalate even those of us who are really, really ramped up with worry. If one thing I will tell you is, you also, not just your media consumption or your social media consumption, but be mindful of people that you're engaging with. So you probably have had this in your families and friend network, that you're interacting and engaging with folks who, neighbors, maybe your or your family members, you're doing Zooms or FaceTimes. And if somebody is particularly negative or always down or always saying that this is the end of the world, everything's horrible, we're never going to have a life again, you got to silence those folks. You got to limit your exposure to them. And if it's your sister and you love her, I get it, but maybe just limit what you talk about, or be prepared with other topics to talk about with your sister when you talk to her. But you've got to be in control of what goes into your brain and what you let in. Allow yourself opportunities to vent and express yourself. Talk to somebody that you trust. And whether it's a therapist, whether you're doing an online support group, whether you have a good friend that you can talk to, believe me, there are days, most of the time I've been doing pretty well, but there are days, it's funny, my friends and family and I have all talked about, how often do you break down and cry? Because this is just so stressful. And, a lot of us were saying every 10 days, every 14 days, maybe every 3 weeks. So, I think that it's okay to sometimes vent and express yourself, but if you dwell on all of the negative, it's going to probably make your anxiety worse. But give yourself opportunities, whether you're journaling, whether you're writing a note to somebody, whether you're talking to somebody, but don't dwell in it, because it's probably going to make your anxiety worse. Focus on what you can control. We talked about intolerance of uncertainty, the intolerance of uncertainty scale, and how that's associated with a lot of anxiety disorders. So there's so much we don't know. We don't know when we're going to be able to eat in a restaurant. We don't know when there's going to be a vaccine. We don't know. I mean, there's a lot we don't know. But what can we control? You can probably control, it's getting better at the grocery stores, and even grocery delivery is getting better. It's funny, back when this all started and we were getting groceries curbside or delivery, and we were getting a quarter of what we ordered, and we were just over ordering because we wanted to at least have something. But now it's getting pretty good. We're getting pretty much everything we order. What can you focus on? What you're going to cook tonight? Maybe you can focus on what exercise video you're going to do. Maybe you can focus on who you call on the phone. Maybe you can focus on what drawer you're going to clean out in the house, a project that you've been wanting to get to. But it's right now, there's so much uncertainty, and it's so important for you to take back some control. Now, I don't know if anybody is homeschooling kids right now, but I have a really good friend. She is just struggling because her child, who's very bright, is just not doing everything that he is supposed to do with homeschooling. And, I've had conversations with her because it's making her anxiety levels so high. what can you control? What can you control? You're not a school teacher. You're not his school teacher. This is a very stressful time for you and him. What can you control in this situation? And, I'm not saying that the child should be running the household, but is it better for the child to do some of the work and have, to be able to reduce the stress in the household? Or is it that we need it to be perfect? And for a lot of us who struggle with anxiety problems, we want perfection, and we're not going to have perfection right now. Try to focus on what you can control. Get the facts from a legitimate source. I can't say that enough. Think about the sources that you trust. And again, when there's a talking head on TV, or there is somebody quoted in a newspaper article or a magazine article, just think about it. Is it facts, or is it this person's perspective? Is this person's opinion? We've got somebody saying, I'm a widow, I live by myself. I used to meet weekly with longtime friends. We vent and share concerns. I can help them and they can help me. You haven't had time for that right now. Phone and FaceTime are not the same. And I agree, they're not, but that's what we've got right now. I know a lot of people, what they're doing, especially with nice weather, is they are doing sort of social distancing out back in their yard, or if they have a very large deck, I know I'm a boater, and we're able to do that at our marina. We're able to safely hang out and be 6 feet apart and not have groups of more than 10. So with the nicer weather, it might be something that you could arrange with a few of your friends to be able to do that. And I know phone is not the same and FaceTime is not the same. Zoom, doing the platform we're using right now, I know that you can get Zoom for free. You can have up to 40-minute chats. Like, this is a paid version because I use it for work. But for if you can get a free version for 40 minutes to use to connect with friends and family. I know it's not the same. I know, but it's what we have right now. But also, you might want to consider that other thought. I know for my neighborhood, a lot of people are, I have 2 neighbors that are friends and they bike together. They're 6 feet apart, but they ride their bikes together on a regular basis. So I think right now it's very hard, but just see what you can work out with those friends, and see if you can maybe try to find out some safe social distancing way to get together. Be in the moment. How do you want to remember this time? So when you put a frame around this time, and you're going to look back on this time and you're going to say, wow, what did I do with that time? And for some of us, if you're really struggling with anxiety, please talk to your doctor, please talk to your therapist. But for those of you whose anxiety is a little bit more manageable, like, what do you want? Do you want to learn a foreign language? I know I live in Queen Anne's County, and they're offering virtual, free, downloadable classes to learn a different language. Or do you want to write a book? Or do you want to teach your kids how to play Pictionary and Monopoly? Or, what do you want to do during this time? How do you want to remember this time? And believe me, I know if you're one of the 18% who struggle with an anxiety disorder, it's hard to not be worrying all the time if you're not treating it. So that's why I want to encourage you to treat it. But I don't think you want to look back on this time and say, all I did was worry. I was a wreck the whole time. As much as there's a lot of tragedy happening and a lot of sadness, and I know that there's a lot of people that have been sick, there are a lot of silver linings. What can you do? Like, right now, what are you able to do? Are you able to, do some virtual volunteer work, like sew masks? Are you able to volunteer with, if you go to volunteermatch.org, and if Stephanie, if you could put that in the chat section, volunteermatch.org, they're focusing right now on linking people up with virtual volunteer opportunities. So maybe it's time to pick up some volunteer work. For others of you, I'm sure you're so busy with work and homeschooling your kids that you are saying, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? I just want our family to not kill each other. I get that too. But I want you to be thinking, how do you want to remember this time? I mean, maybe you're going to remember, the kids didn't have practice every night. We're able to have dinner together every single night. We're able, the kids aren't with their friends all the time. I have teenagers that actually hung out with us. So sometimes that can help to alleviate some of the difficult feelings. Yeah, I really like this. So Mary Chaput is saying, my daughter meets friends in the parking lot of an empty shopping center, wearing masks and staying in their cars. We've got somebody saying, yeah, that if you're immunocompromised, you want to, follow safe outings, but being in cars might work. Yeah, very good. Lori's saying, I want to remember how amazing my colleagues are. And saying maybe get out of your car and sit 6 feet apart. Listen, all these ideas are great. You have to be the one that's comfortable with it. There's not a one size fits all, but there's not a one size fits all for this situation. This is, for some people, what Mary's daughter's doing is perfect for them. For other people, they feel like it's too risky. You've got to think about what's right for you and your family. Be mindful about your diet, with caffeine and alcohol and not eating a healthy diet. That can increase anxious symptoms as well. I'm not saying you don't deserve some comfort food right now. Believe me, I'm not saying that. But it's another thing that we can do to reduce some of our anxious symptoms. Make sure you're engaging with others who you love and who you can enjoy safely. As much as you possibly can. But also, I want to say something about some space. I know for a lot of us, if you're not by yourself, I know some people live by themselves, but others, if you're in a house with your children and your spouse and maybe you have a parent living with you, you probably need a little space, especially if you're an introvert. So as much as I want you to engage with others who you love and enjoy in your household, or however you're doing it via Zoom, or you're meeting friends in the parking lot with your masks on, I want you to be thinking about, taking some time for yourself if that's something that you need. Maybe going for a walk by yourself, or asking the people in your family to give you an hour so you can read your book, because this is a really tough time for those of us who are introverted. I happen to be an introvert and my husband is not. And I think we're on day 72 of both working from home. So we've had to have conversations about how I can get a little alone time. Limit speculative conversations with non-experts. Again, this goes back to media consumption and social media consumption. And the other day I was on a Zoom with colleagues and people were like, when do you think, so I speak professionally, that's majority of what I do. And I was on the phone on a Zoom with a bunch of other professional speakers, and all of us are all we're doing is virtual now. We're not going to conferences. We're not flying anywhere. And several of them wanted to have a conversation about, when do you think we'll be going back to conferences? And I was like, I'm not engaging in this. I have no idea. I'm not an expert. And I didn't really want to hear what they had to say either, because some of them were just, it could be very much, it could have been a downer. And I just said, I don't think any of us know. We'll just see what the experts say. But I think, like, when are we going to get back to normal? Oh, when is there going to be a vaccine? Like, if you are not talking to an expert, when I mean an expert, like somebody who has experience in this field, with infectious disease, somebody who is a virologist. I just think is it worth, I know it's hard right now to talk about anything but the disease, but it's important to try. Especially if it riles you up, if it gets you really tense, and which it's making everybody tense, even if you don't have a pre-existing anxiety disorder. Consider the humor. One of our colleagues at Generations took this picture of a cake. This was back in March at Safeway on Kent Island, and it was back when no one could get toilet paper, and she thought it was pretty funny. But we got to try to find the humor. You all are caregivers. You know that you have to find the humor in caregiving as well. So just do the best that you can to try to find moments of humor. It's funny. My husband and I last weekend, we actually took our boat to St. Michael's. Now, of course, nothing's open in St. Michael's except takeout restaurants. But we went to a new marina. We had a different view on our boat because once recreational boating opened up, and we just started laughing because we got there, we stayed a couple nights, we woke up in the morning, we're like, where are we going to order takeout from tonight? And we just started laughing because we're like, really, this is what our life has come to, that we can order takeout from Ava's in St. Michael's. But my gosh, it was so great because, you know, we'd been cooking and we'd been ordering here and there from places on Kent Island. And we kind of laughed at like, this is, you know, our tastes are, what has pleased us right now has become very simple. And we kind of shared a laugh about that. Meditating. There's many different ways to meditate. There are countless free classes out there right now about how to do it. There is a lot of data that says meditating can help reduce the, Pat loves Ava's meatballs. Yes, they are awesome. Thank you for that. I agree completely. But there's so many, Amazon Prime has a lot of meditation if you're a subscriber there, but there's tons of if you've never done it before, tons of tutorials online, tons of books. Yoga, a lot of data suggests that yoga can help us reduce anxiety and depression, actually. Exercise, I've never exercised more in my life, I don't think, right now. You know, it's getting a walk in, doing a video. There's so many free on YouTube and also Amazon Prime if you have that. And take time right now. So especially as a caregiver, think about re-entry. And I don't want you to be obsessing like, okay, I can't wait until everything opens back up and there's a vaccine and everything's normal. But try to think about like when things get more normal, when we get to a new normal, what do you want things to look like? And part of that might be your caregiving. So what do you want things to be different? Maybe when adult day opens back up, you're going to look at adult day if you've got mom at home. Or maybe it is time to look at senior living or bringing home care in. But think about, what do you want the new normal to look like? So I want to say thank you to everybody. We have a few minutes. If anybody has any comments, last comments or questions, I wanted to, if Stephanie could put in the chat section, if you go to cruisingthroughcaregiving.com, you can get a free chapter of the book and all the worksheets for free. Also, it is in the Anne Arundel County Library. You can get it on Kindle version. So if you have a Kindle, I know that the library isn't open yet, but you can download it at the library on Kindle from Anne Arundel County. But cruisingthroughcaregiving.com, if Steph could put that in the chat section for us. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mary. If anybody has any last comments or questions, feel free to write in. And then Stephanie's also going to put in the link to the survey. If you would give us some feedback, we'd be so grateful if you have anything else to share. But we'll leave the chat box open and I'm going to turn it over to Mary. Thank you all. I hope to see you soon in person. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm thinking of all of you and thank you for all you're doing for your loved ones.
Thank you so much, Jen. I loved it, just like we always do. Just want to remind you all to keep in touch with the Department of Aging and Disabilities. We're teleworking, but we're working 5 days a week. And please continue, take care of yourself. That's what I want to tell you. Take care of yourself. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who joined us this evening. Thank you to Mary and her team for putting this together and offering it to us. As Jen said, I put the link for cruisingthroughcaregiving.com in the chat box, as well as the link for the survey. If you wouldn't mind taking just a few minutes to fill that out and give us some feedback, we'd very much appreciate it. I hope you all stay safe and have a wonderful, safe evening.